And I was like, oh my God, Martin, are you okay? And he said, I got the best sleep I ever got in my life. So let me ask you this. What is happening in Hollywood that a guy that tough will be on the street waving at screaming, they are trying to
Yeah.
What's going on?
Now, the very interesting thing about this is that they were reporting it as a nervous breakdown, but then Hollywood began to mock him.
You got the rate from this, Ali. She's still, she's so big.
You know, when celebrities open up about the dark side of Hollywood, it often sounds like something straight out of a movie. But then you start digging into the stories and it hits you that this stuff is actually real. We've all heard about how Hollywood controls some of its stars, with elites and powerful figures pulling the strings, and celebrities who would do anything to make it to the top. When you look at the evidence, these stories hold a lot of truth. Take Martin Lawrence, for example. Do you remember back in 1996 when he allegedly had a nervous breakdown? The guy was reportedly standing in the middle of the street with no clothes on, waving a cursing and screaming at cars. He was even shouting that they were trying to K-word him. The media quickly labeled it as a nervous breakdown, but Hollywood seemed to turn it into a joke.
She's still, she's so big. Ooh, I'm a cop. Out. What?
Also, hardly anyone stood up for Martin except Dave Chapelle. Dave Chapelle talked about how Martin came up in Hollywood from nothing and how he himself was inspired by Martin's journey. He shared a story from when they were promoting Blue Streak together. During that time, Martin had a stroke and almost died. But when Dave asked Martin how he was doing, Martin casually said it was the best sleep he ever had. That's how tough Martin is.
You know, when we did Blue Streak, we were promoting it, and Martin had a stroke. He almost died. And I was like, oh my God, Martin, are you okay? And he said, I got the best sleep I ever got in my life.
Dave then posed an interesting question. Why would someone as tough as Martin Lawrence be running around in the street, claiming people were trying to K-word him, if there wasn't something much deeper and darker going on behind the scenes?
So let me ask you this. What is happening in Hollywood that a guy that tough will be on the street waving at screaming, they are trying to me?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Now, Dave Chapelle also went on OPR show to share Martin Lawrence's story and to talk about his own Hollywood experiences, including why he turned down a whopping $50 million. But during the interview, OPR seemed to be pushing this narrative that made Dave look like he didn't know what he was talking about, almost like she was trying to make him seem crazy. This made people wonder if OPR was part of the elite in Hollywood who do shady things. After all, she's a powerful woman with connections to powerful people and has been accused of some pretty bad stuff herself, like sabotaging people's careers and not paying them what they're owed. Back to Chapelle in 2005, he suddenly walked away from his hugely successful show and took off to South Africa. Later in interviews, he explained that he felt dissatisfied with the direction the show was going and needed a serious break to figure things out while dealing with a ton of stress. But when Dave left, rumors started flying. People were speculating all kinds of reasons for his exit. Some tabloids were saying it was about or mental health issues, totally ignoring what Dave had been saying about needing to get away. The thing is, by leaving the show, Dave had to give up a massive $50 million contract with Comedy Central. This was the point he was trying to make to OPR, that big money deals aren't all sunshine and rainbows. They come with serious strings attached. But OPR wasn't letting Dave off the hook easily. She kept pressing him, almost trying to make him admit that he had gone off the deep end. She asked him questions like, colleagues reported you became increasingly paranoid. Would you say you were paranoid? And Dave, in his classic style, responded with, sure, what's a black man without his paranoia? You win $100 and you're still looking over your shoulder on the subway.
Colleagues were quoted as saying that you had become increasingly paranoid. Would you say you were paranoid?
Sure. First of all, what is a black man without his paranoia intact? Petty, I was afraid, like, you know.
But you were stressed out. That's why.
There's no question. But it's very stressful for someone to constantly walk behind you and say, you're insane.
OPR, not letting up, asked if Dave went to a psychiatric hospital in South Africa. Dave, with his signature wit, shot back, who?
So did you go to a psychiatric hospital?
In South Africa?
Yeah.
Who?
OPR, persistent as ever, kept pushing, and Dave laid it out. People around him were pushing for him to take antipsychotic meds, but OPR brushed it off, repeating that Dave was just stressed and paranoid. Dave wasn't having it, though. He spilled more tea, talking about how folks were trying to get him on meds, And he wasn't buying into that control game. He straight up said, "I'm not taking this medicine, man, because I know these people be trying to control you or maybe discredit you. I was afraid."
The whole time, they're trying to convince me I'm insane. They were trying to get me to take psychotic medication.
OPR, sticking to her narrative, insisted he was just stressed. Dave kept it real, saying, "No question, but it's very stressful for someone to constantly walk behind you and say you're insane."
Credit, I was afraid, like, you know.
But you were stressed out. That's
There's
why.
no question. But it's very stressful for someone to constantly walk behind you and say, "You're insane."
The whole thing was like a chess match, and Dave wasn't playing Oprah's game. He had his reasons for walking away, and he wasn't letting anyone mess with his head. Despite all this evidence, it seemed like Martin Lawrence eventually gave in to Hollywood's control. Years later, Martin tried to play off the whole incident by saying he was just high on, but a lot of people didn't buy it.
So I go out in the street and shit, and I'm walking down the street and I wait for a light. I go to cross the street, catch the light. And next thing you know, you got ambulance, firemen, policemen, all of them out there jumping on me. They got guns. Nah, I was high to yeah. I was high shit.
But more evidence came out suggesting that Martin might have joined the dark side of Hollywood when his career took off with Big Mama's House. This brings us to an interesting point: the trend of black men wearing dresses to boost their careers. Martin's colleague Brandon T. Jackson openly shared his regrets about wearing a dress alongside Martin in Big Mama's House. He talked about how he felt pressured to do it and how it impacted his career and self-respect. Reflecting on that time, he admitted, "Everything went wrong when I put on that dress." According to Jackson, the pre-Big Mama's era marked a turning point in his career, and while it brought positive aspects like increased visibility, it also had negative consequences for his personal life.
It was a curse that went with that personally, because nothing went right since then. That's truthful. No one can tell me, "Hey man, you thinking too much, man. You sit down, man." Everything went wrong, just like everything went right. Everything went wrong when I put on that dress.
When asked about the changing point, Jackson clarified that it was a negative shift. Sure, his face was plastered on buses, but behind the scenes, his personal life was a mess. According to him, it was a pretty horrible time.
It was a negative changing point, to be honest.
Okay.
Positive in a way where the perception of my image was on every bus, but my personal life was in shambles in that time. It was horrible.
The interviewer pressed him to spill more details, and Jackson got real about not being able to share his story eloquently back then. It's like being a baby who can't communicate yet. He wasn't the seasoned stand-up he is now. Looking back, he revealed that during the Big Mama's House period, he met his daughter's mother, and from that point, his personal life became challenging. Although his career was at its peak, it was a tumultuous time for him personally. Jackson likened it to a passing of the torch, playing Martin Lawrence's son, and noted that playing such roles seemed to bring unexpected challenges. When asked what went wrong with Big Mama's House, Jackson didn't sugarcoat it. He expressed that, in his opinion, the movie wasn't that good and wasn't a prolific film.
First of all, no offense, that movie wasn't that good to me. It wasn't a prolific film. I sound so mean, like, "Oh, you should be grateful for," but I'm real. Just be real. Like, it wasn't like the best movie.
While acknowledging the entertainment factor, he pointed out that the concept of a man in a dress had been overdone, citing Miss Doubtfire as a precedent. Jackson admitted he took on the role primarily for the money and the opportunity to work with Martin Lawrence. It was entertaining, but not exactly an Oscar-worthy masterpiece. Continuing the conversation, Brandon C. Jackson emphasized that his decision to wear the dress in Big Mama's House was motivated by more than just money. He was eager to make a big move in his career. The interviewer then shifted the focus to Brandon's current perspective, noting that he seems more awakened compared to when he first entered the industry. Bringing up the dress again, the interviewer asked if Brandon faced criticism at that moment. Brandon clarified that he didn't receive backlash from people except for Cat Williams, who consistently advised him against wearing a dress. Initially, Brandon thought Williams was just heckling him, but later realized that Williams was genuinely trying to help him. Brandon admitted his own immaturity at the time, feeling defensive about pursuing his career while facing criticism. Williams, it turned out, was attempting to warn him about the potential pitfalls of getting into a dress.
Cat Williams was trying to always say, Brandon, don't wear a dress."
He called you, or is this?
No, he was saying it in the media, so I thought he was heckling me. He was really trying to help me at the time. I didn't know that. I was immature.
The interviewer then asked if, given his current awakened mindset, There's any amount of money that could convince him to wear a dress. Brandon firmly stated that no amount of money could sway him. Further questioning revolved around how the introduction of the dress played out in his career. Brandon explained that after a scene in Lottery Ticket where he didn't wear a dress, the industry started pushing the idea onto him. He drew parallels to Tupac's experience, suggesting that when someone is perceived as too real, the industry attempts to control that authenticity by putting them in a dress. When asked about the purpose of putting actors in dresses, whether it's to tone down their realness, Brandon expressed a personal perspective. He believed that wearing a dress is not part of his cultural background, and people from different cultures may impose their norms. He considered it a curse for him personally, as things went downhill in his life and career since then. Despite the challenges, Brandon stood firm in his belief, emphasizing that everyone has the right to choose based on their culture and beliefs. Continuing the chat, Brandon Jackson brought up how even Dave Chapelle has shared thoughts on this topic. He mentioned noticing changes in Martin Lawrence, emphasizing it's not a just an observation. Brandon acknowledged the fire and energy Martin once had, comparing it to his own experience of getting older but still feeling lively. He threw in Eddie Murphy, noting that despite being older, Murphy still carries that fire, suggesting it might be more about age. When asked if Martin's change could be due to the business wearing him out, Brandon shared his belief that it's more of a spiritual thing. He emphasized that everyone's journey is different and he can only speak for himself. Brandon candidly explained that for him, putting on the dress seemed to extinguish the fire he once had. He reflected on doing it only once, while others like Martin wore dresses multiple times, and Tyler Perry, in particular, seemed to grow stronger from it. Brandon humorously admitted he doesn't know the rules governing these experiences. The interviewer questioned if Brandon would warn fellow stand-up comedians about wearing a dress, to which he affirmed in a laid-back way. He expressed that while some people can handle it, it didn't work for him, so he wouldn't advise others to take that gamble. Brandon even threw in a lighthearted remark about wanting a time machine to go back and give his past self a good punch in the chest. Adding to what Brandon mentioned about Cat Williams warning him about wearing a dress, Cat Williams claimed that Martin Lawrence allegedly tried to get him into a dress. Now, if you're not in the loop, there's been talk circulating for a while that black comedians at some point feel pressured to wear a dress in films. Some see it as a sort of buck breaking, or a way to prove to Hollywood that you're willing to do whatever it takes to make it. It's definitely making waves and sparking discussions online. Let me break down the origin of buck breaking real quick. Back in the day, mainly in the Caribbean, slave owners used this messed up tactic against male slaves who were seen as rebellious. Picture this: they'd make the enslaved guy drop his pants, bend over a tree stump, and then whip him real bad. The goal was to weaken him so he couldn't resist the R that followed. The white slave owner would go ahead and do the unspeakable right in front of the enslaved man's wife. Imagine the trauma of that. Now fast forward to today and you see a similar vibe. Strong black men, even in Hollywood, ending up in dresses just like they did back then. It messes with your head, especially for kids seeing these role models switching up like that. It's like they're playing mind games, doing it in front of fans, family, the whole deal. That's the connection folks are making. History repeating itself, but in a different form. It's kind of funny, in a messed up way. You notice the pattern? They always bring in these strong, black, manly dudes first. Like they weren't dressing up in high school or middle school, always rocking that masculine vibe. Check out how they enter Hollywood all strong and confident. Then peep how they leave, it's a whole different scene. And you can't just blame the industry alone. These guys make the choice to go along with it. They willingly bow down to the agenda just to level up. The industry's like, how bad do you want this money? Are you down to sell out your people, push a certain agenda, and emasculate yourself in front of everyone, just like the buck breaking back in the day? But now it's crazy. These dudes are willingly allowing it. Times have changed, and now it's a choice. Now, when Cat Williams was chatting with Shannon Sharpe, he dropped some revelations about a conversation he had with Martin Lawrence. Williams spilled the beans that Martin tried to get him to wear a dress for Big Mama's house, like father, like son. But Cat wasn't having it, and after turning down the offer, they went with Brandon C. Jackson instead. According to Williams, Martin came to him during a hiatus saying, "Cat, when I come back, I need you. You're my young partner, my young brother in comedy. I need you. Promise me my next movie. It will be me and you. We're going to do it together. We're going to do some buddy cop." Cat, being the stand-up guy he is, said, "Martin, you got my word. When you come back, I'm in your movie. Don't trip. I don't need to see the script or nothing." Fast forward, and Martin announces during a meeting with white executives that he wants Cat Williams to join him for Big Mama's house, like father, like son in 2011. Cat is handed the script, and it's all about him getting in a dress with Martin again. Williams was baffled, asking everyone in the room, why is he in a dress again?
You know, we get in that office and this fool pull out Big Mama's house too. I almost died. Where this want me to get in a dress with him. And I'm literally saying to everybody, why is he in a dress again?
Now, interestingly enough, this story would remind us of the time Dave Chapelle would share that he too was approached to wear a dress. And guess what? It's got a Martin Lawrence connection. He walks into the trailer and sees a dress thinking it's the wrong one. Turns out it's for a scene where Martin's character sneaks out of jail by dressing Chapelle as a
I'm doing a movie with Martin.
Yeah.
The movie's going good. So I walk in the trailer. I'm like, man, this must be the wrong trailer because there's a dress in here, right? He's like, Dave, listen, we got this hilarious scene where Martin's sneaking out of jail. So he disguises you as a dude. And he put this dress on.
Chapelle's like, nah, I'm not doing that. It wasn't in the discussion. They try to pressure him, saying it's a hilarious bit, but he stands his ground, saying he doesn't need a dress to be funny. The whole thing gets intense with writers, directors, and producers pushing, but Chapelle sticks to his guns. In the end, they come up with a new scene without the dress, and he's left wondering, how did you write that so fast? Dave just didn't vibe with it, not because wearing a dress is an issue on its own, but because he felt the industry was trying to corner black artists into doing whatever it took for success. They kept hounding him until they figured out he wouldn't budge. Dave revealed this whole experience was an eye-opener. It took being told to wear a dress for him to connect the dots and realize this wasn't just his struggle. Lots of other black men had been asked to do the same. Martin Lawrence rocked it in Big Mama's House, Eddie Murphy pulled it off in the Nutty Professor series, and Jamie Foxx left a mark with his unforgettable Ugly Wanda on In Living Color. Then you've got the Wayans brothers trying their hand at it with White Chicks. Now, it also turns out that Martin Lawrence isn't the picture-perfect guy some folks make him out to be. He's had his fair share of run-ins with the law, lawsuits, and health issues, throwing a few bumps into the road of his otherwise star-studded career. Let's break it down. While filming A Thin Line Between Love and Hate in July 1995, he went on a violent rampage, ending up in the hospital at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Then in May 1996, he got arrested for waving a in the middle of an LA intersection, screaming about someone trying to him. Exhaustion and dehydration were blamed, landing him back in the hospital. In July 1996, he tried to take a on a flight, earning himself 2 years of probation and a fine. Fast forward to January 1997, and his Martin co-star Tisha Campbell Martin filed a lawsuit against him, alleging SA. By April 1997, they settled, and she returned for the last 2 episodes of the series. And in March 1997, he got arrested for punching a guy in a Hollywood nightclub. And just when you thought it couldn't get wilder, in August 1999, Lawrence slipped into a 3-day coma after collapsing from heat exhaustion while preparing for Big Mama's House. He was jogging in 100-degree F heat, wearing heavy clothing and a plastic suit, recovering from a near-fatal coma with a body temperature of 107-degree F. He definitely had his fair share of the dark side of Hollywood. Taking it back to the early days, Martin Lawrence kicked off his career doing comedy shows in the Washington, D.C. area, juggling odd jobs to make ends meet. It was comedian Rich Snyder who spotted his act and suggested he make a move to New York. Landing at the Improv Comedy Club, Lawrence caught the eye of Columbia Pictures television execs after a performance on Star Search. This led to his first acting gig as Morris Warfield in What's Happening Now. After a series of bit parts, Lawrence hit the big time with his role as C in Do the Right Thing. He went on to star in films like House Party 2, Talkin' Dirty After Dark, and the Eddie Murphy flick Boomerang. Russell Simmons handpicked him to host the groundbreaking series Def Comedy Jam on HBO, catapulting comedians like Chris Tucker, Dave Chapelle, Mike Epps, Bernie Mac, and Cedric the Entertainer to mainstream fame. In the midst of Def Comedy Jam, Lawrence headlined his own hit series, Martin, which ran from 1992 to 1997 and became a Thursday night sensation on Fox, competing with NBC's must-see TV lineup. Despite some controversial moments, like his crude remarks on SNL in 1994, Lawrence's ratings soared, making Fox a serious contender against NBC. In 1995, he teamed up with Will Smith for Bad Boys, solidifying his status as a Hollywood heavyweight. After bidding farewell to Martin in 1997, Lawrence ventured into comedy films, often taking on prominent roles alongside stars like Eddie Murphy, Danny DeVito, and Tim Robbins. His filmography boasted box office hits such as Nothing to Lose, Life, Blue Streak, Big Mama's House, and Bad Boys 2. While he encountered both successes and flops like Black Knight and National Security, Lawrence's paycheck steadily climbed, reaching over $10 million per film. Continuing his film journey, Lawrence starred in sequels like Big Mama's House 2, which dominated the North American box office, and Wild Hogs, 2007, a biker comedy alongside John Travolta, Tim Allen, and William H. Macy. In a surprising move, Lawrence embraced family-friendly content in 2008 with the G-rated film College Road Trip, co-starring with Raven-Symoné. Returning to his FBI agent character, he featured in 2011's Big Mamas, Like Father, Like Son, the third installment in the series. The small screen beckoned in 2013 as Lawrence and Kelsey Grammer considered teaming up for a comedy series, Partners. Premiering in 2014, the show faced a premature end due to unfavorable reviews. Fast forward to 2020, Lawrence made a triumphant return as Detective Marcus Burnett in Bad Boys for Life, the third Bad Boys installment, alongside Will Smith. The film's impressive financial success led to Lawrence reprising his role in a dramatic capacity with 2022's Mind Cage, featuring alongside Melissa Roxburgh and John Malkovich. The Hollywood Walk of Fame honored Lawrence with a star on April 20th, 2023, marking another milestone in his illustrious career. But despite the wonderful journey he had, it's all a bit questionable now because of these rumors that he might just be a puppet for Hollywood. But let me know what you all think of this in the comment section, and we'll catch you in the next video.